Well, how's this for California love? Los Angeles seeing another round of mostly peaceful fires as President Trump announces plans to flood other Democrat-run cities, New York and Chicago, with new, larger waves of ICE agents. Here's 47 to elaborate on that plan. Watch.
You did a post last night where you said you want ICE to really target Democrats.
Yeah, I want them to focus on the cities because the cities are where you really have what's called sanctuary cities, and that's where the people are. I look at New York, I look at Chicago. I mean, you got a really bad governor in Chicago and a bad mayor, but the governor's probably the worst in the country. Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Of that, vast numbers of those people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails. They emptied their jails out into the U.S. Most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
All right, so Jesse, it feels like both these sides, the blue state mayors of sanctuary cities and the president with his immigration agenda, they have been on a collision course with disaster. Could these riots have been averted maybe earlier, maybe a few years ago?
Of course. I mean, they say they want the criminals out, but then they shelter them in the sanctuary cities. And they say they're not voting, but then anytime you try to pass voter ID, they're like, oh, no, you can't, it's racist. And then they say, oh, well, you know, these people aren't here to take American jobs. And they're like, oh, you can't deport them. Who's going to wash my lettuce? Nothing the Democrats are saying is consistent. Now, Donald Trump has to target the cities because that's where they're clustered. But he also has to go after the job sites because that's going to get a lot of attention. And it's going to make bosses not want to hire illegals. They just did a raid at a site in Oklahoma. I think it was a meat processing plant. They swept up a bunch of illegals. And the next week, they posted job openings, and they got overwhelmed with resumes from Americans because Americans will do these jobs if you just pay them a fair wage. Remember during the pandemic, we used to do segments about how this was like a workers' market and all these wages were going up and these companies couldn't find anybody and like you could have your choice where you wanted to work and what benefits. You know what happened? Biden let in 20 million illegals and it just dropped the wages to the dirt. And it's like economic treason to do that. So you have to really make sure American wages go up so they can buy cable TV news subscriptions, because that's what this is really all about.
All right. So, Harold, in Texas, they don't have sanctuary cities, but they do have a lot of immigrants coming over the border. It's a lot easier to access some of the bigger cities like San Antonio and Houston, but they don't have to call themselves sanctuary city, and they're more cooperative with law enforcement. So why can't California adopt the Texas model?
I don't know. They probably should. Couple things here. I'm a part of the majority of Americans, an overwhelming majority of Americans who want to deport people who have come to this country illegally who are committing crimes. The data shows thus far that less than 10% of the people we've deported so far have criminal records. Now they have a criminal record because they're here illegally, but have a criminal record. The president, I think, often says, and rightly says, that these countries have released the worst of the worst in their countries, and these people have come here. And we have seen awful, just tragic, ugly crimes, fatal crimes committed by illegal immigrants. That's where, and I think a lot of the country throughout the election, one of the reasons I think the president won, because people thought that would be the model first. Number one, I hope they continue to do that. And I think even the president's own Secretary of Agriculture has come forward to say that we've got to think about the lettuce pickers. We've got to think about those who are farmers in our country who presumably are from red states. Now, last, I don't like the red state, blue state thing. I don't care where you are. If you are an illegal immigrant here and you're committing a crime, you shouldn't be treated differently if you do it in a red state versus a blue state. And I think the president, I understand what he's saying, and I get the politics of it, but I would just encourage him not to talk about blue state this and red state that. If there are people here who are here illegally, regardless of where they are, and they're committing crimes, you're going to continue to generate big support, even from Democrats, to get these people out of here. Now, there are questions about what's happening in Los Angeles. Should the military be there? How it should be done? But I am one Democrat who firmly believes that Mr. Holman ought to do exactly what he said from the outset, which was to go after the worst first. You do that, you will continue to enjoy broad support. But when you start going after workers, people who are working on farms, people who are working in restaurants, people who are working in retail stores. That's where I think the president's going to face some resistance, and the numbers suggest that that indeed is happening.
And Karen Bass, she's another politician who could have handled this differently. And, you know, now she's complaining that the president won't pick up her phone. And she's surprised by some of the ICE raids. But to Harold's point, doesn't 80% of the country want the worst to be taken out first?
And I think the White House is smart to keep the focus on the worst first efforts. And I don't even think President Trump needs to say blue cities run by Democrats. He could just say in America's largest cities, where illegal immigrants and gang members are gathered, that's where we're going to focus first. But however, I say that, and then at the same time I think, but why shouldn't he point out the leadership? Because it's what people have voted for that have landed themselves in these situations in these cities. And we have a mayor's race going on right now in the city where there's a hot and heavy debate about what is the direction of the country going to be. And I don't think, you know, the president is so transparent. You can't pick up any media organization. He has been willing to talk to everybody this week about immigration, about Iran, whatever it is. And then you have Gavin Newsom. So he was on the New York Times podcast, it's called The Daily, last week. And he was defending those who are here in the country illegally, but who haven't gotten in trouble since, okay? But this is the real dividing line, which is, do you think coming into the country without permission and without doing it legally, does that mean you have broken a law? And yes, I think fundamentally 2 + 2 is 4. Then that's how you get to that point. But that's why I think this worst first thing makes a lot of sense. Change and fixes takes time. People, anytime there's something new and something disruptive, it is going to get a lot of headlines. But you also have the media being super surprised at the numbers of people who have self-deported.
Yes.
But part of this is important about the magnet. What's the magnet? In California, you got free health care. California, you can do anything you want in California. That's why they have such a problem. And taking away that magnet means that maybe they leave and we help correct some of this problem without as much disruption as people are seeing.
Yeah, and to Dana's point, Greg, in California, you pay really high taxes. I mean, you don't pay high taxes so the fire equipment works and so the reservoirs are filled. It's so people who come here illegally can get free health care and free college education. When will the state of California revolt against this?
You can't have free stuff and no border. I think we can all agree that borders are important.
There we go.
Great, I'm done. No, the problem is we all didn't agree that borders were important. We just experienced a systematic removal of our border under people who claim to be the Biden administration, that we're still not sure who they are. And so now they're criticizing the process of removal. No. We don't have to listen to you. I can listen to Harold because, Harold, you talked about the need for a border. But a lot of these people, they didn't. And now, you know, this attack over process camouflages the rejection of the goal. You know, so now the adults are in charge and they're rescuing a country. It's like Trump boarded a ship and is sealing a gaping hole. If we had listened to the people making the biggest noise about deportation and process, we'd have no country left. This is an intervention. We have to do this. You know, if this border crisis hadn't happened, this would be a different discussion. But now we're doing this. It's dramatic. It's forceful. But we couldn't get the Democrats to listen.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.